Welcome to Seven Rivers Sports. I'm your host, Terry Erickson. Each week, an inside look into sports, into wellness, and into fitness. A special show this week as we take an in-depth look at the career of two iconic coaches in the Cooley region. Two coaches that we all know and respect, who have recently retired from Holmen High School. First, Gary Johnson, Duane Vike. Welcome to the show, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I guess it was time. You must have done some soul searching. Must have been emotional. You're ready for the next chapter of your life. Was it hard, Gary?
Not really, because I retired once before from boys, and then I took some time off and really enjoyed working with Dewey in the girls program, and it kept me young.
Well, you still look young, by the way. But we're going to talk about your whole career and identify some of the highlights and so on. But it was it wasn't as much of a surprise when Coach Gary Johnson retired. But then we're away, and I come back, and I catch up on the papers, and I see Duane Vike retires. That was a surprise. Was it?
Yeah. Well, I was a varsity coach for 30 years, and I had a couple years before that, and I always kind of coached groups, and I was kind of at the end of a group, and it was either kind of get out now or hang around for three, four more years for this next good group that was coming through, and it just felt like it was time. I've got other things that I would like to do, and I've got a father that's a little bit older and adult children that live out of town, and so there's more to life, I guess, than to coaching. But it's been a great 30 years.
And did you have, both of you now, was there some soul searching? Did you have a sense of peace in saying, well done, let somebody else take it for a while?
Well, I've thought that a little bit. I had a hard time. It's hard to I didn't think I would have as hard a time as I did, but it was a tough night at our banquet after our last game and things. Pretty emotional for Coach and I and for the girls, but in these last 2-3 weeks, you go back and forth a little bit, but when I put everything together, I feel pretty good about the decision that I made for me and for my family.
Gary Johnson, Coach Gary Johnson. A lot of our viewers may not know this. I grew up watching Gary Johnson play. A fellow Ranger, watching him play at Logan High School in 1959. You were a very successful athlete, played with a lot of quality stars. You were one of them. Took the team to the state tournament. When you think about Logan basketball in the early years, in the 50s, you think about Gary Johnson. Reflect a little bit back on those days.
Well, it's gone by quick. It seems like just yesterday, but we still get together, some of us we're on that team, and we have a good time talking about the good old days. Back then, basketball was a little bit different than it is today, but we didn't have all these camps to go to and different things like that, but we grew up on the playground playing with each other and a lot of kids, and we just learned how to play together by being with each other. So it was.
Well, you certainly in the history book at Logan, and I've seen the annuals, the black and white annuals back then when you were certainly a tremendous student athlete, and then on to the State Teachers College, which is now, of course, UWL. Player there,
right? Yeah, that was a good experience. A lot of good role models I was in contact with. Coach Duvall, I got a lot of my defensive stuff from him. Rollo Taylor was there. Doug Martin was there. Just a lot of quality people that you need to be around in the coaching field if you're going to continue in that, I believe.
You talked about your retirement. You went to Beloit. You came and you coached for 27 years, head coach, and so we'll talk a little bit more about that. But then you retired. You retired to watch your daughter play after Brian graduated. We're going to go into a little bit more into detail. But then you come back out of retirement to coach at a lower level and then become an assistant coach for 17 years and working with your friend Duane Vike. What brought you out of retirement?
Well, I always had a passion for coaching, and I kind of missed it. And I had a chance to go into the junior high and work with the girls team, which was a new area for me. But I really enjoyed it because they were so eager to learn fundamentals, and it was just a real gave me a real jolt to get back into it because it was something different, and it was a real nice feeling that these people really wanted to learn, and they were always very eager to learn at that level.
When you travel to a place called Stoughton, Wisconsin, right?
Yep.
You mentioned the word Duane Vike. They know that name. Talk about your high school days.
Oh, I played basketball and baseball down there. Played on some really good teams. We won the conference in basketball. We were, I think we were ranked number 4 in Class A at the end of the year. We went undefeated through the Badger. We got beat by Madison West in the sectional. We had beaten them during the year, and they beat us in the sectional. So one of those tough games. And then baseball was the same way. We just had a good group of athletes. We had a kind of 5, 6 real good ones, and then 5 or 6 supporting ones. And we had a lot of fun playing ball. And Stoughton was a wrestling town, of course, and it was kind of interesting that we filled up the gym for basketball, and they were second in the state in wrestling. But we hadn't had a good basketball team for quite a few years, so we really kind of dominated the fans that year. But it's always been known as a wrestling town. But I think we won 5 or 6 conference titles that year throughout the girls and the boys.
And then, like your friend Gary Johnson, who went to play at UW lacrosse, you go and play at Winona State on some championship teams, All-American as an athlete at Winona State, set the record there. I think 46 wins, still the record in perhaps your junior year, but you landed in a good spot in Winona.
Yeah, and I played baseball there for Coach Grubb. And actually, the person that got me to go there was Vern Pieper, the legendary wrestling coach in Stoughton. A lot of our guys played at Luther because that's where our baseball coach played. So he said, "I'll go to Winona State. They play a lot better baseball than Luther." So ended up going to Winona State, and we played Luther back then, and always played against 3 or 4 high school teammates, which was kind of fun. But Coach Grubb was a great influence, and I coached baseball and softball in Holmen, and it's kind of funny. I used the Winona State signs when we won our 90 baseball title, when we won our 99 softball title, and our 2012 Legion title. We used the same signs. And a funny story, in a summer softball game, we were playing Winona, and Coach Grubb's daughter was on the team, and lo and behold, Coach Grubb is coaching third base, and we both had the exact same signs. So,
what an incredible story.
Yeah, so we had to, out of respect, I changed my signs. They were his signs. So we made some real simple signs for that doubleheader. But yeah, that was something to go into a game and you got the exact same signs on both coaches.
Again, our guests today, newly retired coaches Gary Johnson and Duane Vike from Holmen High School girls basketball. Who really influenced you? You mentioned some coaches, but who impacted you? Who was an inspiration to you when you grew up wanting to become a teacher and a coach? Who did you model yourself after?
Well, I think several people. I really didn't go into education when I went to college. I went to UW lacrosse, lacrosse state at that time, and I was in business. But I found out quickly that I wasn't as good in math as I needed to be in business. So I switched. They talked me into going into education because there was a shortage of men in education, and so I would say my high school coach, Rod Martin, was a big influence on me. My college coach, Cliff Duvall. Bernie Barkin was a very good friend of mine, a coach at Beloit, and I got into coaching down there, and I just, being around him really motivated me to want to do what he was doing. And I came to Holmen and had a chance to be coach, and then that's where I ended up.
And of course, you mentioned some of your coaches too, Dewey, and I know you're a lifelong learner, and so is Gary. Reading manuals and updating yourself on methodologies and the way the game has evolved. Do you look back at your younger years and model yourself after anybody in particular?
Well, I look at, when I was coaching baseball, my high school baseball coach, Tom Lawrence, I tried to model spring and summer baseball the same, similar to what Pete Swanson does down in Viroqua. I think that's the way to do it. I kind of counted it as one season, stay with the same guys, same philosophy. It worked out great for the 12 years I did that in Holmen. And then my high school basketball coach Larry Marceau, same thing, and both those guys were Hall of Fame coaches. And then Gary was a mentor of mine also. When I was his assistant coach one year, but then when he retired from boys, I used to ask Gary, come to the game, sit and watch, and write a couple of pages on what you're seeing. So he would come and scout the game for me. And then he'd give me 2 or 3 pages of notes. We can improve here or this or that. So I learned a lot from Gary, and really Coach Brian Veliska too, about organizing things and being efficient with time. He's an excellent coach as far as practicing and scouting and things like that. So it's kind of a blend of a lot of people that influence you. You really can't choose one.
Well, again, recently retired Mark Ingworth, a friend of mine, your AD, said to me, 80 years of coaching between the two of them, a passion to help student athletes from the beginning to the end, growing as both individuals and players, and the entire Holmen community saddened by the fact that you have both retired, and 80 years, a combination of the two retiring, and that's a great statement that he made, and I'm sure it's felt by many people. When we come back, we're going to talk more about and really get into some of the players you coach, some of the accomplishments that you have made over the years, right after these messages.
At Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning, we have assembled a championship team
who listens to what your needs are.
We install carrier comfort systems that improve the comfort, efficiency, and the air quality of your home and workplace.
We serve you with highly trained technicians who are prompt, friendly, and honest.
For Gold Star treatment, turn to the experts, Carrier and Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning.
Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning, your comfort is our business.
Welcome back to Seven Rivers Sports again. Today, a special show with 2 retired coaches just announced not too long ago, Gary Johnson and Duane Vike from Holmen High School girls basketball. Well, first half of the show we talked a little bit about your career, but need to mention too, Gary, in your 27 years, 6 conference titles, 8 regional titles, a sectional. You went to state. I remember going to the barn watching that team with Conley and Horseman and many of those players, Vosick, and I think Ryan Goodnow was just probably underclassman in that team. But he made a comment to me. I stay in close contact with Ryan Goodnow, and said that you were an inspiration to him. And he made a profound statement, and the statement was he hopes someday that his son can play for a guy by the name of Gary Johnson. Pretty powerful statement.
It's nice, yeah.
And he was one tremendous athlete, but during that span of years, including having your son, the point guard, junior and senior year, you had some quality championships, games, and some quality athletes.
Yes, I was very fortunate during that time to have some really good athletes. It was, you need to have teams like that when you coach a long time, because it gives you a little more inspiration to keep going, and to watch a group of kids like that go as far as they did was a lot of fun. They made it a lot easier for me as a coach, because they listened, they went out and they performed because they really wanted to play. They had a real desire to play, and that helped.
Well, and wait a minute now. You inspired them to be that way, which was a great testimony to your leadership. Duane Vike, there was a great article in the paper, just caught up on that. Overall record, 1,162 wins, 674 losses. Real quickly, 30 years of coaching girls basketball, over 400 wins, 13 years of softball, 173 wins, championships, all-star accomplishments, coaching the all-stars, 6 ASA state championships in softball, baseball head coach for many years, 114 wins. A Legion coach, 227 wins. I don't know if our viewers are keeping track of all this, but wow, you've coached every sport. You've coached baseball, girls basketball, softball, summer baseball, summer softball, and a math teacher.
That's right, yeah.
And a wife that's a saint by the name of Janet.
Yeah, yeah.
Who was behind you every stretch of the way.
She was, and had some fun years coaching. You know, my 2 sons both played on the baseball teams, and my youngest was a pitcher on our state Legion championship team, and my daughter played basketball. And my wife is interested in sports, so it's been a fun time. But yeah, I counted up. I think with the varsity level seasons, I think it ended up being 71 seasons of varsity level, counting the summer as a separate season.
71.
So.
Well, you can see he's a math teacher, right? Because he keeps good track. Hey, speaking of your wife, Janet, she told me just recently, family affair, all 3 children sitting in the bleachers, Joe, Brian, Emily, watching you when they were very young, and you growing up watching how you cared for your athletes, and very, very proud of your accomplishments. She's been a rock behind you.
Yeah, absolutely. She's such a good sport with things. And we have get-togethers at our house sometimes after games, and she knows the kids, and maybe not quite as much the last couple years, but the early years. I know our state title team, in '95 girls, they're still really good personal friends of my wife. I mean, those girls are in their 40s now, and the teams where my daughter was playing, obviously those are real close friends. So it's been, I have, 120, 30 former players, and my wife knows quite a few of them.
And you mentioned your daughter Emily graduated in 2008, first team to ever play in Division I, won a regional, got beaten in sectionals, lost to Middleton. You expected more out of her, she said to me, than maybe others, but now she's going to enjoy sitting next to you watching games with you.
Yeah.
Father, daughter.
Yeah, and like I told the team, and when we retired there, I've never watched a Holmen girls basketball game. I've never have done that. I came to town and I was Gary's JV coach, and for some reason never went to a girls game. So the first one I ever saw was the one I coached, I guess, against Westby. That first one was, and so that'll be fun. She's a real fan of girls basketball. And
of course, Gary, your daughter Christy. Now everybody knows that name, Christy Johnson, one of the better players that ever wore a uniform at Holmen High School girls basketball. She played. Now then she went to Marquette. I followed her at Marquette. I know a lot of our viewers. She, and of course, I've kept on contact with her. She always, she had so many darn good things to say. It would take the rest of the show to share them, but reminded me that you always approached everything in a humble fashion. You always wanted your athletes to smell the roses. You never cut down coaches that she played for. You never hollered at officials. You're a lifelong learner. She was emotional when she talked about how meaningful it was to be part of your family.
Well, yeah, it was tough for the kids, I'm sure, with their dad being a coach, but I would recommend anybody that has a child to coach them if you have the chance. It was a great experience. I really enjoyed it. Just a great place to teach them life lessons too. So.
And you taught a lot of them. Speaking of kids, Brian, who I've kept in contact with, Brian lives in Texas. Your son lives in Houston, Texas, doing well. He said to me yesterday, my dad was and still is my hero. I remember coaching, playing for him on a traveling team. He wanted, kind of reminded me of my coach, Gary Johnson. He made sure, he demanded that the players in practice or in a game were clean shaven, their hair was cut short, their sideburns were at a certain length, and kind of reminds me of a guy by the name of Wayne Lucas that I played for that had the same approach. But Brian has some really memorable things to say.
Well, and like here again, it was really fun coaching him. I'm sure it wasn't easy for him, but it was a great place. As a family, we could do things and sit around and talk about things. I never got in their way. I always let them go find their own way and things. And talking about the clean shaving, I could tell you a lot of good stories about that. A few kids didn't want to cut their hair and didn't want to shave, and I had to do it for them. And had a few mothers after me, but
I'm not sure that would work anymore. But it wouldn't. But Christy Johnson, says this about Duane Vike. When you think of Holmen High School girls basketball, you think of one thing. You think of Duane Vike. You made practices fun. You would walk into practice and with your Coke and chips, and you still
no,
drink Coke and chips?
Try not to. No, not practice anyway.
Threw up your half-court shots, and he made you feel. You made them feel proud to be a Holmen High School athlete, and you asked them, demanded, and encouraged them to go the extra mile.
Yeah, and she did. She was such a leader, and she, you know you have a good team when your best player is your hardest worker, and she was by far well, I had a lot of hard workers. She was our hardest worker in the gym, and you mentioned earlier she's one of the best players ever. No, she is the best player we've ever had in Holmen, and there's no question about that. She's one of the best the Cooley region has ever seen, going to Marquette and never missing a start in 4 years. She was a great player and a great leader in terms of encouraging people, not getting after them in a negative way, but really bringing them along. You know, she scored over 1,500 points for us, but she probably could have scored another 500 if she would have been a little more selfish. She especially her last 2 years, she passed the ball probably too much, trying to get her team back to the state tournament that she had played in as a freshman.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. Well, and then you brought back Caitlin Russell as Player of the Year twice in the MVC, graduated in 2013 as a assistant coach.
Yep.
She talked to me a little bit really about some of the special things, team dinners, and you would have all kinds of stats referring back to the 95 team and a lot of your...
Or the 98 team.
Or the 98 team, and that it was an honor to both coach and play for you. And she said the same thing about Gary. What an honor to be part of the program and to bring a player back. It's had such a positive experience. It's a testimony to what you have accomplished. One of the things that I learned too, Gary, is the personal letters, the personal notes, which was a big part of what you are, who you are, what you stand for. Going the extra mile for your athletes and how meaningful that has been over the years, those personal encouraging letters and notes. Talk about that.
Well, you know, there's so many negative things that happen. I think kids have to learn that if you're going to learn a lesson, you learn it through doing something wrong, whether it's on the basketball court or in life, and they need to be reinforced on this. And it's a big thing when they learn that mistakes are okay. That's how you're going to get better. And I tried to push this through to them and keep them interested that way.
It worked. It absolutely worked. Steve Blank was your assistant for quite a while, 10 years as an assistant. He's a friend of mine. He played for me. He coached for me. And has always had high regard for you and said one thing that he admired, not only being a mentor, is that you gave him an incredible amount of responsibility as an assistant coach, which helped him develop as a head coach.
Well, I always felt that a good assistant wanted my job, and Steve was a very good assistant. He was a very good offensive coach, and my thing was defense, and I said, well, this is a big job to try to do both of them yourself. He had a lot of great ideas, so I wanted to give it to him, knowing that someday he probably would be taking my job. So,
and he did, and he's done a great job. In the last couple minutes before we end the show, I read an article recently about the change in coaching over the years, and it used to be autocratic and dictatorial, and now it's more about relationship building and coaching in the millennials versus the baby boomers. And prior to that, it's a little bit more educated technology. The question is why, rather than to just do a drill and not ask questions, which is how all three of us grew up playing and maybe coached in our younger years. Now it's not that way. It's all about relationship building. It's all about explaining. It's all about bringing people into the mold. Would you agree with that, Coach?
Yeah, and I think, and I've coached a lot of boys and a lot of girls. I think maybe even more so with the young ladies. You know, girls are great at you. They'll bust their tails and play hard to win a ball game. But after the game, you know, Coach and I might be a little down, and you get on the bus and they're having a burger and a malt, and they're happy as heck. It seems like it's really more about the relationships. I think the boys tend to take a loss a little bit more to heart. But even there, the boys are not like what they used to. We used to be told to do something, and it was just, there was no question.
Exactly, and now it's more about resiliency with girls in particular. But Gary, before we close the show, one quick thing: how has that changed? You played in the '50s, you played collegiately, you coached in the '60s, '70s, '80s. Now, and what's the biggest change you've seen?
I think the biggest change is the kids are basically the same. They want to play hard. They want to win, but I think they're under a lot of pressure. And I think it starts way back with the teams that they used to have in the summer and traveling teams in AAU ball, and it's gotten to be more specialized. Where I think Dewey and I grew up, we played multiple sports, and a lot of the good athletes still do that, but. I think the kids are a little more serious to the point that you really have to spend time building them up.
Yeah, I agree. But you've been successful through the ages, and what a privilege to kind of go through and highlight and pay tribute to the career, 50 years of coaching for Gary Johnson, and over 30 years and 1,000 wins in multiple sports for Duane Vike. And it's been an honor for me to have you on the show, and we want to thank you for taking the time and wish you the best in the next chapter of your life.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be back with some closing thoughts right after this.
At Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning, we have assembled a championship team
Who listens to what your needs are.
We install Carrier comfort systems that improve the comfort, efficiency, and the air quality of your home and workplace.
We serve you with highly trained technicians who are prompt, friendly, and honest.
For Gold Star treatment, turn to the experts, Carrier and Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning.
Schneider Heating and Air Conditioning. Your comfort is our business.
Welcome back to Seven Rivers Sports. I hope you enjoyed our interview today. Spotlight on coaches Gary Johnson, Duane Vike, as they retired after tremendous careers at Holmen High School. A variety of things to do this spring in the Cooley region. I have a passion for road races, especially those races that benefit a cause. I hope you may consider getting involved in some run and walk events during the next few months. Competing for a cause certainly is exhilarating, and it is especially interesting and beneficial. You can find the same source of camaraderie by being involved in these events. Plus, it's a perfect antidote for a spring season that is somewhat dreary here during the month of April. We appreciate those that watch the show each and every week. If you have a thought for a guest or a topic, please contact us here at the studio. Next week, we salute the D5 girls state champions in basketball from Bangor High School. Coach Merlin Jones, Tricia Jones, Elizabeth Nikolai. Hope you can join us for that show. Thanks for watching our show this week. Hoping that you will have an active and healthy week ahead.